Outside the accident and emergency department in Coventry is a man in a wheelchair. He is in a pitiful state. His legs and feet are swollen, causing him intense pain, but more than anything else, he is exhausted. His trip to AE began the previous day when he spent 6 hours hoping to see a doctor before giving up and asking his father to drive him home, says liver patient Colin, 39. He returned on Wednesday morning when we encountered him only to be told another 13-hour wait lay ahead. The reason is self-evident from the scene in the waiting room, which is full to bursting. The staff are doing their best and they do a marvelous job, but the NHS needs more money and more staff, he said. It's as simple as that. It cannot cope with our increasing population in Coventry. Colin, a scaffolder, was still waiting when we left. Behind Colin's marathon visit to AE is another story particularly prescient in the circumstances that is not always reported and often dismissed or derided in certain circles, if it is. Britain's population grew 1%, or 662,400, to 68.2 million in the year to June 2023, the largest increase in 75 years, the Office for National Statistics revealed last week. The annual increase was fueled mostly by net migration. Many will be surprised to learn Coventry's population was one of the fastest growing among UK cities in this period, exceeded only London aside by Birmingham and Manchester. A total of 22,366 people arrived here from abroad, while just 7,828 left. The result? A net increase of 14,538. That's a town about the size of Ripon in North Yorkshire. The statistics behind the headline figures are compelling. More than 1 in 4 Coventry residents were born outside the UK, and 1 in 7, almost 50,000 people have arrived since 2011. Coventry, in other words, has been transformed in plain sight down the years. Mass migration in Coventry population, about 350,000, has had an impact on almost every aspect of life in the city, which is an inconvenient truth many on the left would rather turn a blind eye to instead. Any discussion is painted as bigoted. Having spent the past week here, the reality is hard to ignore. There are GP surgeries under pressure with as many as 3,000 patients per doctor at some. The UK average is roughly 2,300. People who go to AE can wait 15 hours. There are schools where up to 40 different languages are spoken and temporary bulge classrooms set up to take extra pupils. More than 9,000 households are on the local authority social housing register, and ever more greenbelt land is being swallowed to alleviate the accommodation crisis. Multiculturalism in some areas of Coventry means Afghans, say, living next to Iraqis. In one ward, over a quarter of households have no one with English as their mother tongue, which can do little to enhance social cohesion. Coventry was known as Motor City when the UK had the world's second largest car-making industry, home to Jaguar, Chrysler, and Peugeot in its 1960s and 1970s heyday. Its recent history is that of Britain in microcosm. The main ethnic groups in the former industrial powerhouse are from India, Poland, Romania, and Pakistan, which make up a third of the population, but there are others from all corners of the globe. Coventry also attracts the highest proportion of international students across its 2 universities, Coventry University and the University of Warwick, of any city in the UK. Many migrants and refugees work at the giant Amazon warehouse here. Their contribution, doing the jobs many Britons do not want to do, should not be underestimated. Nevertheless, people we spoke to say the numbers arriving are putting an intolerable strain on local services. In March, 1,368 asylum seekers were receiving financial support in Coventry, the 4th most of any local authority in England. The council did not provide us with a more up-to-date figure. However, one GP practice in the city specializes in treating only asylum seekers and refugees. Its patient list of 4,000 includes victims of torture, rape, and female genital mutilation. 1. Aya Jabbar, 31, a midwife in her native Baghdad, left war-ravaged Iraq 5 years ago for a better and safer life in Britain. She lives in Coventry with her mother Nidial, her non-English-speaking grandmother, and 4 siblings. We love living here. Both me and my mother want jobs but can't find work, and we're struggling to manage on the benefits we get, she says. The surgery has 1 full-time and 2 part-time GPS, 2 nurses and interpreters. A hotel on the outskirts of the city is one of the places used to house asylum seekers who occupy 4 of 9 floors. 4 young men from Africa who arrived in Coventry in the past 7 months were in the lobby when we visited. They said they were happy and being treated well. Another hotel in the city center is also believed to be housing up to 200 migrants. To put this into context, countrywide, nearly 30,000 migrants are staying in more than 250 hotels at a cost to the taxpayer of PS4.2 million per day. The GP surgery treating asylum seekers and refugees is in Fulshall, one of the most deprived wards in Coventry, where 80% of residents identify as being part of an ethnic minority. The shopping parade Al-Qiddi's Butchery, Aladdin's Shisha Lounge, Yosef Bakery, Selim Cafe, Peshmerga food store reflects this. Fulshall consists of rows of terraced houses, where no one in more than a quarter of households has English as their main language. How might this affect community relations? A recent council survey states the city remains cohesive, but the number of people who said their neighborhood is a place where people get on well together had noticeably reduced. Some residents, both of British and non-British origin, expressed frustration at the number of new arrivals. Wazam Mohammed came to Coventry from Pakistan more than 20 years ago. My British partner was living here and sponsored me, explained the father of 4. I got a job as a salesman for a grocery company, quickly learned the language, and I have now been promoted to team leader, he said, adding there are too many immigrants here now and many don't speak English and don't work. They are a drain on the system. His views were shared by a white British mother of 2 in her late 50s who did not wish to be named. She said the influx had had a huge knock-on effect on locals. I have lived in Coventry most of my life and I have never seen so many people living here, she says. Our city simply doesn't have enough space for everyone. In a different part of the ward, underneath a Crime Stoppers notice on a lamp post urging the public to help make our hillfields better and safer, is a bunch of flowers wrapped in cellophane, presumably in memory of a life lost. Hillfields is an area which has been plagued by gang violence. We spoke to a young man who arrived here 2 years ago after joining his aunt on a rescue flight out of Afghanistan, leaving his parents and siblings behind in Kabul. Meeting him is a humbling experience. Now a fluent English speaker, he lives with extended family in Coventry and says that he is very happy here. He said that at the school he'd attended only about 15% were white British. Most pupils were from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the usual across the city. Since 2019, Cardinal Wiseman Catholic School, for example, has worked with the local authorities' Ethnic Minority Achievement Service to create a 6th form course for pupils with little English. The rapidly expanding provision for asylum seekers and refugees from Iraq and Syria, highlighted in a feature in the Coventry Evening Telegraph, has changed the school's whole ethos. Almost 6 in 10 pupils had an ethnic minority background, with 40 languages spoken and 42% of children speaking English as an additional language. At other schools, migrant pupils' parents are sent a link to Google Translate when their children enroll. The overall school population has shot up by 1,500 in 2 years. At Moat House Primary, a prefabricated block was built in January to house an extra 30 pupils. At least 6 other bulge classes have been installed in city schools. The strain on health services, not just schools, by the influx of migrants was raised by Councillor David Welsh at a meeting last year when he was cabinet member for Housing and Communities. Further arrivals will require additional health provision, for which the source of funding is unclear, said the councillor, who has since resigned. I cannot stress enough that the issue we have is not with the people that would be placed at Quadrant Hall former student accommodation, many of whom are fleeing terrible circumstances. Our issue is with the unfair home office system that sees cities like Coventry take far more than our share, placing added pressure on an already overstretched local support system with no recurring funding to help pay for it. The problems faced by some of the city's overburdened GP surgeries were laid bare on Facebook by resident Mel Gregory, whose husband suffered blood clots and high blood pressure, although a non-smoker. He's been ignored, she said in a blistering post. I've made repeated phone calls to the surgery and we are told to call 111, the number for urgent out-of-hours care. He works full-time, pays into the system, yet cannot get a 5-minute appointment with his own doctor. How is that right? How is being triaged by a receptionist, Through a window, okay? Who gave these receptionists their medical degree? The crisis is unlikely to abate with thousands of new homes going up on the green belt. One scheme to build 2,500 houses at Kings Hill and Stoneleigh on the outskirts of Coventry has already caused alarm in the NHS. During the consultation process, South Warwickshire NHS Foundation Trust revealed the strain the development would put on local hospitals, including Coventry. It calculated 5,750 new residents would generate 13,800 interventions a year for the trust, which needed a rise in available beds to cope with the population increase. The healthcare provided by the trust would be significantly delayed and compromised, putting the local people at risk if that didn't happen, the trust warned. Another development has already started in Bennett's Road in the suburbs of Coventry. There were green fields as far as the eye could see, said Gillian Colin, a former Home Office official. Today, the once idyllic vista is scarred by a brutal 2-meter high security fence just feet from the back gardens of their homes, which have names such as Springfield Cottage, Lilac House, and Harefield. Beyond the metal perimeter are diggers, mud, noise, and men in high-vis jackets. It's absolutely heartbreaking, added Gillian, who lives next to the chaos with husband Peter, also 66, a retired software engineer. The building site, until just over a year ago a green belt haven for wildlife, is now the location for 3,200 new houses. More than 500 have already sprung up. We don't need more houses, we need less people, declared one resident in the comment section of the local evening paper. Residents are worried the extra housing won't be matched by infrastructure improvements. The developers insist they will be. Local campaigner Ann Evans is not convinced. We haven't seen any evidence of it yet, she said. Mother of 2, Sarah Brown and her husband Thomas moved into their detached 4-bedroom house in 2018 and used to enjoy stroking the horses that grazed in the fields behind their property. We can and should give asylum to those in need, but as we build more homes, we also need to put more infrastructure in, such as new schools, new surgeries, hospitals, and everything else, she says. Without better infrastructure, how can people's lives around here not be impacted? You can lift planning restrictions and build all the houses you want, but without the appropriate infrastructure, it is going to cause problems. Back at AE at University Hospital Coventry, C. Jones tells us he arrived at midnight and only now, 15 hours later, has he eventually got to see a doctor. It's rammed in there, said the 24-year-old who had passed out after a dizzy spell. There are too many people and not enough staff. Is it any wonder so many think something has gone badly wrong?